Okay, so think about this on a Monday. The U.S. government shutdown is now just 1 day shy of becoming the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. It's set to beat a 35-day record set back during President Donald Trump's first term. So the impact is hitting dinner tables all over the United States. Over the weekend, tens of millions of Americans were expected to lose federal food benefits called SNAP. So enter two federal judges who say the Trump administration has to use emergency funds to keep SNAP payments going. So the White House had until today to figure out how exactly they'll pull that off. Meanwhile, in a 60-minute sit-down with CBS News' Norah O'Donnell, the president continues to blame Democrats for the shutdown.
What are you doing as president to end the shutdown?
All we're doing is we keep voting. I mean, the Republicans are voting almost unanimously to end it, and the Democrats keep voting against ending it. You know, they've never had this. This has happened like 18 times before. The Democrats always voted for an extension, always saying, give us an extension, we'll work it out. They've lost their way. They become crazed lunatics. And all they have to do, Norah, is say, let's vote.
Live now to the White House and CBS News, Olivia Rinaldi. So, Olivia, we understand you have some breaking news about the administration tapping into those emergency funds. What can you tell us?
That's right, Reed. The Trump administration had until noon today on the East Coast to respond to two separate federal orders to release some of those SNAP funds. We just got a response from one of those orders. The U.S. Department of Agriculture told a federal court in Rhode Island that they're going to tap into a contingency fund to help fund SNAP for those 42 million Americans who are now without that crucial food assistance. Here's the key, though. They're only able to fund about half of it. SNAP costs about $9 billion for November benefits. They are able to cover about $5 billion of that in these food aid contingency funds. So only about half. They also told the court that the administration will fulfill its obligation to expend the full amount of SNAP contingency funds by providing states with the information that they can use to calculate the benefits that they need for each eligible household. So the administration giving way, saying that they are going to comply with this legal order, that they are going to allow for SNAP benefits to be paid out for those nearly 42 million Americans who do need them. But it's going to be less than what is expected, of course, and certainly something that is going to take some time to get out. And of course, this comes under the shadow of the government shutdown, when this has really been somewhat of a key sticking point for Republicans and Democrats, knowing that these SNAP benefits are going to run out at the end of the month. They have run out. It is now going to hurt American families. There is now some bit of contingency in place, but certainly something that is still going to continue and be a question as long as the government continues to be shut down. Reed?
You know, every time we talk to the real people who are affected by all of this here on CBS News 24/7, they say we just want Democrats and Republicans, the president, to all get in the same room and just hammer this out. Is there any indication as we start a new week that the president is willing to sit down with Democrats in the same room and come to some solutions?
Well, the president was asked about this last night on 60 Minutes. Norah O'Donnell asked, are you going to tell Democrats to vote to end the shutdown? That's just the plan. And he said, correct, it's very simple. Just end the shutdown, and then we can talk about those health care subsidies, which is why Democrats have voted to, or why Democrats have not voted to reopen the government. They're arguing that they need to extend those tax credits that would help keep the premiums on the Affordable Care Act down so millions of Americans could afford their insurance. The president's saying we can have that conversation, but open up the government and then we'll have that conversation. Democrats are saying, no, this is a key sticking point. Americans are now seeing those premiums reflected on the portal when you go in to get the Affordable Care Act. You can see how high they have risen, arguing that this is now at the crux of the moment where they're going to feel this pain and make the Republicans essentially invite them to the negotiating table and have a discussion before opening the government. But the president says there's no way that's going to happen. He feels that they just need to open it, have a clean resolution. He said he also feels that he doesn't want to be extorted in this process, is how he has put it, that they are making him negotiate rather than just keeping the government open and having this negotiation later. So, Reed, this is certainly at a point, though, where we are looking at breaking the record for a government shutdown. 35 days is what happened back in 2019. So looks like they're poised to break that if they don't have a breakthrough tomorrow, given that tomorrow is also Election Day in America, and certainly the focus will be on that. But there's a lot at play here, and there's a lot of Americans who are certainly feeling this squeeze now, from people who are on SNAP to air traffic controllers. So we'll have to see what becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back and gets these two sides talking and gets the government open.
Olivia, Rinaldi, thank you for that live from the White House. Now, CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns live with us now, watching lawmaker reaction. Any reaction from lawmakers about that announcement on SNAP funding and you tapping into some of those emergency funds?
Well, of course, it's welcome news for the 42 million Americans who benefit from SNAP funding. But notably, in that court filing, they acknowledge that this is only going to cover about 50% of eligible households. So still not covering everyone and as much as people need for the month of November. Democrats have been arguing, well, this was a court order. They say that Trump should not get credit for this. This was a response to a court order by a judge to release these funds. Republicans are still hoping that Democrats come, in their view, over to their side. So if you're looking at kind of the bigger picture here, there really has been no movement in terms of negotiations among the various parties here. I'm talking about Republican leadership, Democratic leadership, and the president over at the White House. So if you weren't paying attention to any news this weekend, don't worry, you didn't miss anything, because there haven't been any real discussions among the top lawmakers here to bring an end to this, with both sides thinking that the other will cave. And you heard the president in that 60 Minutes interview essentially say that Democrats are going to have to capitulate at some point. Democrats feel like the pressure points will build for Republicans to cave, but Reed, I'm not seeing any evidence that that would happen.
Yeah, it's a staring match, and nobody is blinking. Also want to ask you about what else was said in that 60 Minutes interview, sit down with Norah O'Donnell, especially how the president thinks things should go in Congress relative to the filibuster rule. Walk us through what he said.
Yeah, well, the president's looking at this and thinking, okay, well, Republicans control Congress, they control the Senate. Why can't we pass a clean, continuing, simple funding resolution? That's because Republicans have control, but they don't have full control. You still need 60 votes to pass any legislation here. And so that is why they're at an impasse. But take a listen to what he's hoping that Republicans will consider doing.
You're saying the Democrats will capitulate.
I think they have to. And if they don't vote, that's their problem. Now, I happen to agree with something else. I think we should do the nuclear option. This is a totally different nuclear, by the way. It's called ending the filibuster. The Republicans have to get tougher. If we end the filibuster, we can do exactly what we want. We're not going to lose power.
So essentially he's saying, get rid of the filibuster, just vote to get rid of it. Now, Reed, I can tell you that there is no appetite among Republican leadership to do that, because they know at some point in the future, Democrats will be in control and they could pass anything that they want to pass or undo anything they want to undo from this current administration. So both sides have been, in the past, very reluctant to go that route when it comes to legislation. You may recall that they've eliminated the filibuster for things like judges and other items, but for this particular issue, for the issue of legislation, that has always been considered a slippery slope, and there are no Republican leaders, at least at this point, that really want to go that far. So the president is pushing for that, but at this time, we can't see that actually happening. Their game plan for now is to assume that Democrats will eventually cave. And as Olivia noted, there are big elections tomorrow. We'll see if that is another pressure point that gets people talking.
Fascinating to see if it takes the temperature of the nation in ways that people don't expect. Caitlin Huey-Burns, always appreciate and enjoy the conversation with you here.